Welcome to the Profitable Farmer podcast, where we share stories and tips to help you run a better farming business and create your very own freedom farm. If you're looking to work smarter and not harder in your farm business, welcome. You're in the right place. G'day everyone, welcome again to Profitable Farmer. I hope you're well, and I hope many of you are ignoring this and instead replacing it with a beach holiday or something at the end of what I hope has been it's been a solid period for so many of us, but I hope you've had a positive result given all the vagaries of 2022. I was just reflecting on my way here, fixing a bore this morning and arriving here, that this is just one of the favourite things that I get to do in my role with Farm Owners Academy. Dwayne Duxon, what's your favourite thing about your role with Farm Tender?
Well, thanks, Hutch, and thanks for inviting me on. I do a lot of content writing, so I really enjoy that part of it. I suppose our guys, our staff and myself talk to a lot of farmers over the week, and we get lots of information they relay back to us, and a lot of the stuff that they relay back to us you don't hear in the rural media. So we sort of pass that on to our customers or members in some way, shape or form, and they can take little bits from it that might help them in their business, or take it or leave it type scenario. Yeah,
perfect. So to all of you, just to introduce Dwayne Duxon, for me, there are some amazing untold success stories in agriculture and certainly across our country. So many unsung heroes doing pretty significant things that we don't know about. And what I love about my role in this podcast is the chance to speak with people and share their story. And I'm really excited, Dwayne, to have you with us for this interview and to share your backstory and to share the farm tender and delay pay story. So thanks for your time and welcome to Profitable Farmer.
Thanks very much, Hutch, and thanks for having me.
So to those of you that don't know, and I'm tipping that most of you will know, Farm Tender is an online buying and selling marketplace for farmers and associated ag companies across Australia. Farm Tender facilitates sales of grain, hay, machinery, equipment, and so many other items in our game. It is an amazing success story. And I'm looking forward to unpacking that with you, Dwayne, a bit and just hearing about how it is you and your team have arrived to where you've arrived to. But today, Farm Tender has 62,000 farmer members in Australia and overseas. And in last calendar year, 2022, transacted over $100 million worth of online sales in our industry. So an amazing online platform, an incredible online service that just adds so much value to so many people in our industry. And behind all of that, there's a pretty compelling story. So, Dwayne, just on this, how do you reflect, given the journey that you've had, and we'll unpack some of that, but how do you reflect on where you've arrived to? Did you ever expect Farm Tender and delay pay to be where it is today?
Oh, not necessarily, Hutch. I just started out on my own and started doing a few different things and had a real interest in the internet side of things back probably 4 or 5 years before I started Farm Tender. So no, I never thought it would come to the point where we're up to 60,000 farmer members and we're transacting over $100 million worth of stuff. So no, I didn't, honestly.
And a team of 13 or thereabouts, Dwayne?
Yeah, 13 of us, Hutch. We all work remote, so most in country Australia. So guys sit at their desks every day, and we've got good systems. About when COVID hit, everyone was working from home. We've been working from home 8 years before that, so we had really good systems in place. So it was nothing new to us. But they just sit there and basically facilitate deals and service our customers, via the phone. So what you see, our website and our app is our shop front, but it's the people behind the business that is the guts behind the business.
And I think that's a key point. So often we go on and we do business online and we don't necessarily stop to acknowledge the incredible team that sits behind that service. Just before we launch into this, how would you acknowledge your team? What would you say about them, and what would your shout out to them be, Dwain?
Oh, look, we've got a fantastic team. A lot of them have been with us. As I think we started this business nearly 11 years ago. A lot of them have been 6, 7, 8 years with us. They actually love working from home. They get to, grow up with their kids and take them to school and go and see their sports. Those things for us are non-negotiables as far as work's concerned. They're very loyal and very clever and good at what they do. And they're just a fantastic bunch. And we've probably never had our people in the right positions as we have at the moment. So everyone's in a really good spot.
Well done. So if we go back to, I think, March 2012, actually, let's go back further. That's when Farm Tender was founded. But could you just give us your backstory prior to then? I think you grew up on a family farm in the Wimmera and made a significant decision with your family to move on from primary production and to back yourself into this enterprise. Could you just give us a bit of backstory about growing up on that farm, how you operated with your larger family and how you came to make that decision?
Yeah, I've been in agriculture and grown up on the farm all my life. So we've got a farm. It's a mixed farm. My brother runs it now. We call it the family farm. About 6,000 acres, merino sheep stubbed and merino sheep and cropping. And it's at Manu in the Wimmera, Victoria. Manu's famous for two things. Merino sheep studs. There's lots of merino sheep studs. They're very famous for that. And Mari's Idol, which is probably the world's greatest ever trotter. But growing up on the farm, that's all I wanted to be, was a farmer. So, basically you go to school and then you come back on the farm and apply your trade there. And we had a merino stud that was, reasonably successful. We probably, when my brother's keen, he runs it now, but when him and I started out, we're selling probably 100 rams and we got to probably 750 at its peak. We're in the SRS system with Jim Watts. So a lot of people would remember that. So, and, we had a good clientele, and one thing I've always been good at is building a database, and I was constantly building a database, and I was sending out weekly emails to all our RAM clients and things like that. So I love the internet and the connection side of things, but I got a bit frustrated after a period of time and that I couldn't reach enough customers. I wanted to reach more. I wanted thousands of customers to reach, and I just couldn't do that with the merino sheep game the way it was. We're sort of doing something a little bit different with the SRS side of things, and it was hard to sort of build a business. Like I wanted to sell thousands of rams, but they never really eventuated.
And so, John, why is that? Is it because there's an annual cycle that you've got to sort of be patient with, and that incremental improvement takes time in that game? Why was it that you couldn't scale that more quickly?
Probably, and we're talking 20 years ago here, and the merino industry was very traditional back then and back further, obviously, but and that, I think that's changed a bit now with the advent of ASBBs and breeding bees and things like that. But back then, it was when you were doing something new, it was hard to break into a traditional industry and serve them up something that was new, if that makes sense. And so we really struggled in that department. Even though we had good growth, it just didn't, float my boat.
So you had an interest in building databases, obviously a desire to be entrepreneurial and grow and create something significant, and an interest in internet and online 20 years ago when it was really probably just coming of age. What prompted the change, and how did that play out for you?
I don't know. I've always sort of chased my dreams, so to speak. And even though I didn't have really big dreams, I was always courageous enough to try something different. So, and it was a big move. When we left the farm, or when we decided to leave the farm, and I can't remember what year it was. I think I was about 35 years of age, and I'm 52 now. it was a big decision, and we left the farm, and you sort of left, relatively certainty. And when we drove out the gate, we were going into the unknown. It was quite emotional, but very, very exciting for the family. We went and lived in Yarrawonga, which is 350 k's away. So I wanted to be still involved with the farm, but just I did all the financial side and the marketing side of things. So I was involved in it that way. And I used to come back to the farm once a month to do all the financials and things like that. But yeah, I wanted to go and try something else, and I didn't really know what that was.
Pretty awesome to back yourself to leave something that offers at least some certainty, that of a family farm, and back yourself to go and relocate and live somewhere and not know. Did you go and get a job? Did you try a few things before Farm Tender started, or did Farm Tender arrive to you fairly quickly?
It didn't. I didn't get a job, but I tried a few other things which were mildly successful. So we did what was called a managed investment scheme with sheep back then, and that went really well. But the guys that were running it, they actually went broke, but it didn't affect our business. And we had 30,000 ewes under management, and I had 3,000 ewes myself up at Cunnamulla at a property up there. And we were lucky enough to buy in really cheap, and we had 3 good seasons and then sell out 3 years later at the height of the market, which is unheard of, especially 3 good seasons at Cunnamulla. So I sort of did that on the back of, that was the first thing I did when I left, and I really enjoyed that side of things, but it was the internet that was always pulling at me.
I think, and you and I have spoken about you being at a field day and a farmer just making the comment, why can't I sell this stuff on the website? Isn't it interesting how these just passing comments, if you actually hear them, can be the thing that helps you find a niche that can be the thing that scales? So do you mind speaking to that comment? And, he might have said that to 10 people, but you were the one that heard it.
Yeah, that's it. That was the start of probably just a bit before Farm Tender, and we were going to the field days promoting our online business, which was actually a buying service. So a farmer would go and list that they want, let's say, 200 tonne of MAP, and then the suppliers would all put quotes on. But after a supplier lost 5 quotes in a row, they'd just say, "Oh, stuff this is no good." So, and we were sort of promoting that, and it was, the farmers loved it because they were getting, transparency on their fertiliser and chemical and things like that. But it wasn't working for the suppliers, and obviously that's a bit of a two-sided marketplace. So you need both parties, and when one doesn't play, it doesn't work. So this guy came along, and I'd love to know who it was. I just can't remember. He's probably maybe listening, and he may be registered with us, but he mentioned that, why can't I sell stuff on your website? And it just got me thinking. And, my developer and I went, we fast-tracked that process and had something in market in probably a month or 2. I can't really remember, but it's been the absolute pivot and turning point to our business, that comment.
Yeah, it's amazing. So tell us about the first 12 months, 2 years of Farm Tender. How much programming was there? Building out a two-sided marketplace, I understand, and I've never done it, is really complex because, as you say, you've got to get both sides engaged, supportive, continuing to turn up, and then you've got to really work hard to scale both sides of the marketplace. Would you mind speaking to how you actually create something like that?
Yeah, it's obviously got to build. I'm not a technical person, so I come with the ideas and things like that, but I had to get someone to build the technical side of it, which is fine. But look, as I said earlier, I love to build a database or databases, and we're lucky enough to have 2,000 people in our database when we first started Farm Tender. So I guess, we had 2,000 members before we started. So that sort of helped. That helped a lot because, obviously I would get in contact, because it was just myself at that point, would get in contact with all these guys, do lots of cold calling and ask them to list items, and we'd do the fake it till you make it type thing, where we might make a few dummy ones up and things that I love seeing content that's keeps turning over and turning over. So it was tough to get it going, but we're lucky enough to have that database. And there's a couple of things we came across, and it was back in 2012. I think it was 2012, but there was a lot of second grade lentils around in the Wimmera at that point in time. So the Wimmera area is a big lentil growing area, and a lot of they had a sort of a cut-off spring, and a lot of the lentils were damaged and they were downgraded, and there was no market for them. And it's not like wheat or barley where you can only store it in a silo for so long without treatment. You can store lentils for a period of time, and a lot of these lentils were, I think, 2 or 3 years old. I can't remember. And this, out of the blue, this buyer came along, and he wanted to buy all these lentils, and we had a really good price, and there was just no market for them. So we, contacted all the Wimmera grain farmers with lentils, and I think we sold up. There was something like 10,000 tonne over the period of time, and that really got us going. That was the catalyst to us earning some revenue and allowing us to put other people on.
What was your vision back then for the business when you sort of started in those early days? Was it to focus on grain primarily, or what was your vision?
No, that's probably the smartest move I've ever made in my life, is having multiple categories. So doing things like grain, hay, machinery, livestock. We're involved in fertiliser and chemical and livestock equipment and vehicles and trucks and all those things. That was probably the smartest move I ever made. We, make it for, we call it agricultural or farm stuff, make it for everything rather than just go down the grain on its own or the hay on its own, because there are other people doing it and they do it very well, but it was probably the smartest move ever made.
So how do you describe your point of difference compared to others, and what sort of competitive pressures do you face every day?
There's competitive pressures every day, and we'll go through them a bit later. But I wrote something down. I thought of it last night. Everyone talks about the why and things like that. And as a planner, I've never had a great plan, so I didn't have a vision of where I was heading. We just sort of woke up in the morning and said, what happens today happens, and you never know what would happen. That was part of the exciting part of it. But I wrote this down last night. We love providing a platform that connects people through the buying and selling process, but most of all, we love servicing that connection. So that really sums us up. Like, ever since day one, I wanted, making sure that we get back to everyone. Anyone that inquires through the website, we make contact with them, and I've drilled that into our staff so that we're, at every attempt, we're getting back to people and making contact. And that's how we build up really strong relationships with our customers.
Yeah, it's such an important point. I love the concept that the point of business is where the transaction happens, and the success that we have in business is the value that we can add at that transaction. And in and around that, what's so important is the quality of the client experience. And so how many online experiences do we have where it is purely transactional? You go online, buy something, and there's no support, there's no intimacy, there's no follow-up. What I experience with Farm Tender, Dwain, is that, the client experience and the quality of the care and the service that you put around the transaction, for me, that's the thing that sets you apart. Would you agree to that, or is it more than that?
No, totally agree. Like things like, just to give an example of what we do, like if, people have to inquire through the website, so we don't have contact details. So we only charge someone if they sell something. So it's a performance-based platform, we like to call it. So, once an inquiry is made, our guys will get on the phone and, just contact both parties, and some will want them to negotiate on their behalf. Some will want to do it themselves. Others will want their hand held really tight. And then we do things like, if someone indicates they want to buy something, we draw up a contract so everyone knows exactly what's going on. And then we do the invoicing on behalf of the seller to the buyer and make sure that the goods are delivered before we, send the funds through. So everyone's happy in that transaction. But I think the biggest thing that we do by building relationships is the trust build up. So I'd say that's probably the biggest thing. So let an example of that might be, a farmer inquires about, a farmer in Wagga inquires about a piece of an item, in Murray Bridge, and then those guys don't know each other from a bar of soap. So our guys get in the middle of that process, and they'll say, yeah, we know Jono from Murray Bridge. We've been dealing with him for 5 years. What he says is what it is. We've got data as long as your arm on how good he is, and that gives that buyer a sense of relief. To know that that there's an element of trust there. Whereas if he didn't have that connection, they'd be on guard all the time before the transactions could go through.
So over time, you've got to know your sellers really well, and you can vouch for them in the process. Yeah,
very much so. And I was fully involved in the sales process. I'm not now, probably for the first 6 or 7 years. And we build up some terrific relationships. Like I'd have 5,000 names in my phone, and when guys I haven't spoken to for 4 or 5 years, ring up and you say, "How you going, Jono?" And they say, "How you got my?" We talk, back then. So it's the relationships that absolutely make it.
It's the great thing about this game and this industry that we're in, isn't it? There's so many good people. How do you reflect? What have been some of the biggest challenges that you've had to navigate? Like getting a business from a standing start to the scale that you enjoy now. It doesn't come easy. And I think often we think that, these overnight successes can't have been all that hard to navigate. Look, 15, 20 years in this, what have been some of your challenges, and how do you reflect on the journey?
Oh, there's challenges every day. There's lots of different challenges every day. I suppose, but you just got to draw it back to the simple, 1%ers. And we talk, one listing at a time, one sale at a time, one member at a time. We only ever talk in ones because, that's how it really works. It's such it's an industry that only lets you grow at a certain pace. And that might, I know you guys at Farm Owners talk about limiting beliefs, but that might be my limiting belief. But that's the way I see it, because we've kept records and KPIs since day one. And it's about a 30-degree angle, our growth all the way through. And it's like it had a little bit of a peak at the start of COVID and things like that. But other than that, it's just constant sort of consistent organic, growth. I've just got that belief about agriculture. It just doesn't let you grow. It only lets you grow at a certain pace.
I'd suggest 30% growth is pretty sigsignificant growth year on year.
I meant 30 degrees, and I'm 30
degrees. Right.
Graph, that's what the graphs look like. They're not very they're not very exciting. You can't put them in front of investors.
What are some of the big growth steps that you've had to take? Like, was it a big step to recruit your first person and build out your team? Have you had to make significant investments along the way? Like, what are some of the big growth steps that you've had to consider? Dwain?
Oh, definitely the staff are our biggest investments. As I said, we're lucky to have loyal staff and guys that have been with us for a long time. But onboarding the right people is a inexact science. You've got to go through the process and try and get it right and hope for the best. And we've had times where it hasn't worked out, and but most of the time we've been pretty lucky. Look, and it's a bit more difficult today, as people would know. Like just an example, if we put out a job ad, we'd put it out through our network, and we'd have 100 applicants 5 years ago, and probably 2 years ago we'd do the same, and we probably have 15 or 20. But we've decided to change tack a little bit, and especially with our admin side of things, putting on part-time people, and all of a sudden we've got 100 applicants again. So you've just got to find solutions to that. But definitely, it's been our biggest investment. People are our biggest investment. And if you look at our P&L, that's where all the expense is. The technology side is expensive as well. Finding good developers, good IT staff is always difficult. We did a rebuild back in, I think it was 2020, and we did a complete rebuild of our website, and we outsourced it to another company, and it took them 14 months to do because it's quite complex, our back-end system. And then when we launched in March 2020, I think it was, We had so many things go wrong, and it was just an absolute nightmare. And we probably lost a few customers over that, and hopefully we've gained a few back since then because it's working pretty good now. But yeah, just that change, and then all these things that went wrong. We just botched it up, so to speak.
So for those people who are finding it hard to find good people, and there are plenty out there, there does seem to be a lot of concern now more than ever, really, or more than recently, about just the challenge of finding good talent. Is there anything unique that you do to sort of uncover and find good quality candidates to become part of your team?
Oh, I've got a big saying, you just got to find a way. And I don't know what it is for any particular individual, but we just, went down a different track. It wasn't that particular track wasn't working for us. So we went down a different track, and you got to sell, sell the other things apart from the wage and the role. There's the other things that'll come into it as well. It's difficult for farmers to understand, you got to get people out into the country, and most of them want to live on farms. So you just got to think outside the box. Perhaps you can share a staff member with a neighbour or something like that, and there's lots of different ways you can try. But you just got to keep trying and find what works for you.
And you mentioned sort of really tap into the value proposition that you can offer to your team members, and you mentioned before that it's working from home and flexibility and a lot of other things in addition to the remuneration, and it's important to emphasise those things, isn't it?
Oh, big time. Yeah, no, definitely. Very lucky to be able to do this role remote. We're all very lucky to do that. So it's that's something that our staff would look back on and say, yes, that's nearly a privilege.
How do you support culture in a business that is remote? You're not all in the same office. How do you describe the culture at Farm Tender, and what sort of things do you do to support that?
Great systems for a start, Hutch. So, and they don't have to be extravagant or things like that. It's, we use Skype messaging as a group chat type scenario, and we're on that, virtually we're on it pretty much all day. We do things like everyone's, there's certain rules around that. So everyone's, when they get on in the morning, they've got to say good morning, no matter what time they start or when they, if they duck off and take the kids to school, they're just to let people know, just ducking off in 15 minutes, and things like, anything to do with family and medical is a non-negotiable for us. So people just got to say what they're doing, and we don't even question it or anything like that. You got to build up trust with your team, and we do another thing we do is a 3 o'clock shout around. So we put a clock up on the feed, and everyone types in what they've done for the day, or any little snippets they've come across and things like that. But probably the most important thing we do is our daily numbers. So we do daily numbers for about 25 different KPIs. So things like how many signed up, how many sales, how many invoices went out, how many activities we had, how many listings, all these different KPIs, and we put them in a Google Doc, and that goes out to every one of our staff every morning. So everyone knows what everyone else is doing. So if someone's falling behind or something like that, we can see, but everyone else can see as well. So, and it keeps our sales guys competitive, because, that's what you want. You've got to put in the yards to get a bit out of this game. So that's how we work at it. And it works. Our systems are really good, and they just work for us.
So for me, Dwain, FOA is the best company I've ever worked with and for. Our culture is incredible. And like you, we've got 20 plus team members as spotted across Australia now, all working from their farms and from their home. And the culture is incredible. A thing that I think is the glue of that is the frequency and the quality of our meetings and our communication, the daily huddles, the weekly meetings, the monthly meetings, the quarterly meetings, our annual planning meetings. And it's a rhythm there that we recommend to all of our farmer members that are going through our programs. How important is your meeting structure to support that culture and to support that dynamic within a remote team?
Yeah, very much so, Hutch. We meet every Tuesday morning at 9:30. Obviously Mondays are a busy day because you get a lot of the weekend stuff coming through. And Tuesday morning at 9:30, all our staff go on a Zoom meeting. Everyone has a chance to host the meeting. We do it in turns. We go through a set sort of routine of, what each department's done or what they've got coming up, or just a bit of a snapshot so everyone knows. And we have a question every time. So the person that hosts the meeting puts a question on, and it could be about anything, and then everyone has to answer that question at the end of the meeting. And that's a really good bonding thing, because it's more a personal side of things that we come from as far as that's concerned. So yeah, that's a big part of it. So we meet live or in person once a year, so that it's not very often. We have really good catch-ups at really social occasions. So, but we're constantly in each other's pocket through our systems and our meetings. Yeah, they're very important. Couldn't do it without it.
So interesting that you get together once a year. We're the same. We get together as a team probably 3 times a year in person at our conferences. And as I say, the culture and the dynamic is incredible. You mentioned, just as a passing comment at the start of this interview, there's just the little 1%ers that make the difference. And sharing who runs the meeting and them being able to ask that question of everyone just for a bit of fun. I think they're the little 1%ers that can truly make a business, a team, a culture, a recruitment system, an induction system absolutely unique. So it's really nice just to hear some of those little innovations that you've pioneered just to help support that team and that culture.
Yeah, it's great. Everyone gets to know each other better, and as you dig a bit deeper, as we get to know each other better. Like during COVID, when we couldn't go out, we recruited a few people, and some of us hadn't met for, been working together for 2.5 years and haven't ever met face to face before. So it's the same with our customers, Hutch. Like you're talking to them on the phone and you get this picture. I'm talking to Hutch. I've never met him before. I'll get this picture of what Hutch looks like and how he acts and things like that. And you go to a field day or something like that and you meet and you just think, oh, I didn't think you'd look like that or you were like that. So it's quite, and there's hundreds of those sort of people. Everyone, we build up these really good relationships, and it's really good to catch up face to face in the end, though.
Dwain, what I want to talk about now is just how many projects or ideas you've had and tried and have, for whatever reason, gone, yep, no, that's not a starter. I think so many of us don't back ourselves on this entrepreneurial journey just to have a crack at stuff and see how it goes and to test whether it's going to fly or not. Over your journey, and in addition to Farm Tender, how many entrepreneurial ideas have you come across or had and tested, and either continued to run with or decided that they're not a starter?
Oh, heaps, Hutch. There's a lot of ideas going through my head all of the time, and I'm a vivacious reader, so I get lots of, I do lots of reading, so that stems a little bit from there. But it drives our staff crazy when I come up with a new idea. They just all go, oh no, not again. But yeah, like we've implemented.
What are some examples, Dwain, of business ideas that you've thought of and tested, and then decided for whatever reason might not be?
We've tried a group buying system for fertilizer and chemical. We've tried a car broking service, a ute group buying service. We've tried a third-party invoicing piece of software. There's probably 4 or 5 others that we've tried and failed at. But the beauty of what we do, Hutch, is we've got an audience. And they'll just vote with their feet. If they don't like it and they're not responding to it, we know to cut it, because and we've probably had, I don't know, I'd have to add them up. We've probably had 10 complete failures, so 10 things that haven't sort of made the cut. But, in those 10 failures, we've probably had 2 or 3 real nuggets of gold, and it's so worthwhile when those nuggets of gold come through.
Yeah, I love the concept that your network equals your net worth.
Yeah.
You talk about the value of your database and just how powerful that is for you now, but how significant can be for you in testing new ideas, but into the future. Delay pay is one of those ones that rose to the top. Would you mind just explaining how it came to be and what delay pay now contributes to your members?
Yeah, delay pay is a buy now, pay later for farmers. So basically, we give farmers 6-month terms, and it stemmed from how farmers pay through our farm tender platform. So I've got this saying: farmers pay. It's just a matter of when. So some will pay on the spot, some will 7 days later, some will pay 14, some will pay a month, some will pay 2 months, some will pay 6 months later. But in the whole scheme of things, the seller or the supplier wants to be paid on the spot. So that's the thing that stands out the most. So what we do at that, how delay pay started, I went around, I had this idea and I tried all the fintech companies. I went to Sydney and Brisbane and all over the spot, trying to pitch this delay pay idea at them, but they just couldn't get it because I wanted something that was quick, had to be quick and really easy. So a real low doc sort of option. But everyone I went to wanted to attach the back paddock to it. So it was just like a glorified overdraft in that case. It wasn't going to work. You weren't going to compete with the banks. And then I had this guy who actually came to me to pitch his business. So he's a guy called Kelsey Miller, who's my partner in delay pay. And he's a former banker with the NAB, and he was pitching his business, which was sort of a little a livestock agency sort of disruptive business. And I thought it was a good idea, but it never really took off for him. And I kept at him, what about this delay pay, this afterpay for farmers idea I've got? Anyway, never sort of twigged on. And then one meeting, he came back to me and said, I reckon we can make this afterpay thing work. So anyway, we went away and we connect because we use insurance. It's a combination of insurance and finance. So we went away and got the insurance company, and we went to an invoice financing company, and they agreed to do it. 6-month terms, which was stretch for the invoice finance company and a stretch for the insurance company, but we managed to pull it off. And in about, I think it was a month or 6 weeks, we had a product in market. And the first day we put the product out, we had five starters ready to go. So, so we sort of had a bit of an idea that it was going to work. Obviously, we had used our farm tender database to start the business off. But we've been going 4 years now, and I think we've sort of funded about, I was probably up to 70 million worth of agricultural goods. So, and we don't actually finance anything. We're just goods traders. So we get the seller to invoice delay pay, and then we pay that invoice, and then we invoice the buyer, and they pay us 6 months later. So that's how it works. And we'll do any agricultural goods. So we'll do, stock feed, we'll do livestock, we'll do machinery, diesel fuel, chemical fertilizer, anything that's sort of an agricultural good. And it's going really well. It's one of those businesses that just keeps growing every year. And we're excited about its future.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's a perfect complement, isn't it, to farm tender as well?
It is, yeah. Yeah. No, and obviously that's where I got the idea from. But it's our point of difference at delay pay is it's quick and easy. Like, we can get a limit for a customer up to 100 grand within 12 hours. And then once they've got that limit, they're free to trade. So, we're hearing extensions on overdrafts and things like that up to 6 months with, taking that long, which is ludicrous.
Just before we move on, what are you seeing out there, and what are your team seeing? My sense is that we've had some real optimism in the industry and in the game over the last few years, and with COVID and now interest rate rises, maybe the sentiment's changing. What's your reflection on what you've seen across the industry as a broad comment, and what's your take on what we've got ahead of us?
Yeah, it's definitely been a fantastic couple of years, probably since you saw a big change. I think it was March 2020, correct me if I'm wrong, when the drought broke in New South Wales and Queensland. A big front came through, and that's probably when it all changed for everyone. And yeah, it's just been buoyant since then. Like our model works, like if there's a drought, we do lots of hay and things like that, and machinery goes really quiet because people haven't got the confidence to buy those sort of things. But then obviously when we came out of that drought, hay went really quiet. We sold next to nothing for the next 2 years, but machinery took off. So it sort of complements. But look, it's definitely been a couple of great years. You know, you know, and everyone else, all our listeners would know that the land prices have gone through the roof, and you know, a lot of people have built up a lot of equity in that period. Farming's changed, and as for the future, yeah, look, we've got our headwinds with our, you know, input costs and things like that. You know, a drought is, you know, it's going to happen whether we like it or not. Everyone knows that. So it's just a matter of when. But I think we're better prepared than ever for anything like that, you know, than we have been in the past.
Yeah, interesting comments. And COVID obviously thrown in there as well. And that accessibility issue obviously supported, I guess, a lot of domestic trading in machinery and other equipment. Do you see that changing into the future?
I don't, because the supply chains for new equipment are still broken. And that was a big game changer for us because, you know, people would turn to used stuff in that case because they couldn't get new stuff quick enough. So it's really the used machinery market's been buoyant for ever since the drought broke, really. It went a little bit quiet in November and December, you know, when obviously you guys in New South Wales had a horrendous time with floods, but in Victoria, it was a pretty good season up until then. And then it just kept raining every weekend and people lost confidence. And we see confidence in agriculture as the biggest thing, one of the biggest things, because you can see it go up and down really quickly just by talking to people and things like that. And we saw a drop off in confidence because people lost a bit of control with the season. All of a sudden they thought their crops would be underwater and their yields would be next to nothing. But that once they got into the harvest, you know, they realised that wasn't the case, and some of them actually had record harvests in a lot of spots. So it didn't turn out as bad as they thought. And we're starting to see the confidence be repaired now, and people are back spending again. It's probably happened in the last 2 weeks that we've seen that confidence really lift. So confidence is a big reader in agriculture. Like you can just see it drop off, and the checkbooks go in the bottom drawer, and you know it takes a bit to get back, but it turned back really quickly this time.
Yeah, that's interesting. The other thing that you've attempted in your journey is to go global or to expand overseas. I'm not sure. So many of your members might not actually know that, but Farm Tender really succeeded in Australia, and you did back yourself you actually moved your family, I think, over to Texas, Dwain, and you and Paula and the kids landed in America, and you had a red hot crack at expanding Farm Tender in that market. Tell us about that, and how do you reflect on that experience?
Probably the greatest experience of my life really is, you know, lifting yourself up and going to live in another country and trying to get a business going. So we tried to, you know, replicate our business over there the same as it was here. It was called 55 Farms over there. We were based in Austin, Texas. My son, who was, I think, 15 at the time, and myself went over for a bit of a 2-month sort of look around and a bit of a fact-finding mission. So we went over there and drove mainly through the Midwest and other areas, and you know, just checked out things, and then came home and thought, yeah, we can do this. So I think I went back for 3 or 4 months by myself and got it all going. And you know, we had to start the business, you know, start a company. We had to open bank accounts and things like that, and it's so completely different over there. And then I had to start employing people. So I think I got to about I think I hired and fired 4 people before I found what I considered the right person. And then, yeah, we just couldn't make any traction. We just couldn't get anywhere. It was, it was hard yards, but oh geez, it was good fun. It's a great place to do business. But my advice for anyone that's going over there attempting in the US is to make sure you employ, at least one or two native people over there, that, one or two of the Americans, because you just struggle without it. I struggled, like people couldn't understand me on the phone, because I talked too fast, and they just couldn't understand the lingo. Like everything's the same but different over there, if that makes sense. Like they all drive John Deere tractors and all those sorts of things, but the lingo is different about how they describe things. So it really takes a lot of getting used to. And it's that's just my advice. Get someone who's over there.
Yeah, it's so interesting. So you mentioned that it's similar over there. Farming fundamentally and the way they go about it, your assessment is that it's similar. Was it that there was just an immense amount of competition there, or big market? You mentioned,
That's it.
Even a language barrier, but what were the reasons why you decided not to stay there and continue to crack on?
The singular reason I found difficult was we tried to enter into the machinery market, because that seemed to be where we were successful over here and thought we could make a big impact over there. There's not many sheep and I don't know much about cattle, but they just do it different over there with their machinery. They either goes on consignment with the dealers, or they send it to auctions. They don't necessarily trade from farm to farm like we do here, or farmer to farmer. And you go to these farms over there, and there's that much gear on these farms, and there's no sheds. It just sits out in the open, and there's so many things they could be selling if they had the proper marketplace. But there doesn't seem to be anything like it over there, and I just couldn't crack it. Just couldn't. I mean, we had. We tried and we failed, but, it was well and truly worth it, because I just learned so much, and I always said we'd go back into different guys, but I haven't sort of worked it out yet.
Yeah, I wonder if there's a way in which you might take on something like that again.
Yeah, it's tempting, but I'm having a lot of fun here, and I mean, a terrific place to do business and live and things like that. But I'll see how we go on that one.
So just reflecting then, Dwain, if there was a couple of our listeners, and I'm sure there are, that are sitting there with a great idea and they're on the farm, on the chaser bin, in the header, getting ready for spraying or whatever they're doing. And I'm going to expand this to include everyone. Like it might be a young son or daughter on a farm with an idea, or it might be, anyone, husband, wife with a book idea, a non-farming idea. What would you say to them? I mean, you backed yourself to leave your farm and back yourself to launch into entrepreneurship. I see a lot of people doing some amazing things, leveraging their farm and being entrepreneurial in complement to their farm. What would you say to people who are thinking about an entrepreneurial side hustle, if you like, to their farm business?
Side hustle, just go for it, I'd say. Just going back a step, probably, I think I wrote about it this week or the week before, I can't remember. But, I mean, first thing you probably got to do is choose an industry that you enjoy. And most people that are in agriculture enjoy agriculture, and they just want to do something in agriculture. And I sort of pointed out to the young guys that no matter what you think, you might be, you might be shearing, you might be, working in a piggery, you might be working in a farm-based accountancy firm or something like that. But whatever you're doing, as long as you're doing it in your industry, it's not going to be wasted time for you. So, and then when you really decide what you want to do, and a lot of people, and we see a lot of farmers, I've talked to a lot of farmers, and, they go through 20 or 30 years when they just do the job, but they don't actually want to be farmers, and not until a succession or a parent dies or something like that, that they actually change and go and actually do something they really enjoy and think, why did I do that all those years? Why didn't I just do what I'm actually doing now? So just, if you're interested in agriculture, your time's not wasted doing what you're doing. But if you've got something you want to really achieve, you just got to get out and do it. You just got to, drop everything. Like when we left, as I said, I continue to work in the farm on a remote side, remote role. And then I just said to my brother, we've got to do our succession. This isn't going to work for you. I've spent 15 or 18 years in the business. I'm probably want to move on and go and I was doing something else. So we actually did our succession early. It was painless and seamless, but I think, on the succession side of things, probably another topic, you need someone to lead in the succession side of things. But look, if you've got an idea, you've just got to go for it. Start a side hustle, do something on the side that you're passionate about, but just do it. You just got to do it. Don't hold back. And, if you're worried about your family or, your role on the farm, just talk. You've got to talk to people about what where your passions lie.
What do you think it is that keeps people from backing themselves like you have?
Oh, it's family farms are great, but they can hold people back. The generational thing is, there's been, I think there's 6 generations of Dachshunds have been on the farm. People hold that really close and tight, and it probably restricts them from actually getting off the farm and doing something. If they really don't want to do it. So. Yeah, they're great things, but if you're not enjoying it, it can be tough going. So I don't know. You just got to be honest with yourself, really. At the end of the day.
Yeah, so many of the battles we have are actually with those limiting beliefs, and you mentioned that before. If we inherit a farm or with a 3rd or 4th or 5th generation farmer on a farm, our mindset and our beliefs can be that I've got to not lose what I've been given or what I've inherited. And so that can keep us from backing ourselves and being courageous. Can be just as much a fear of success to a fear of failure, or, but so many doubts and limiting beliefs and fears can hold us back. How have you navigated those? You must have come up against a lot of that limiting or that negative self-talk on your travels. How do you observe that and move through it?
I don't know. I'm a pretty positive person, and I don't know whether this is a trait. I suppose it has to be a good trait where I'll trust people until they do you a bad turn. So, and I strongly believe that you don't get anywhere if you don't look at it in a different way. If you don't trust any people, it can get pretty tough to make inroads on things. But yeah, look, yeah, it's a fabulous journey. And just getting back, like, entrepreneurs, all the farmers are entrepreneurs anyway. Like, you can be an entrepreneur in your own business and create a business that's so different to what your generation past has created. That's where you can use your entrepreneurial spirit as well within the business to completely change it and go down a different track.
Dwain, a couple of questions just in finishing. What's been the best advice you've ever been given? Part of your journey, and we haven't touched on this, is that you're an avid reader, you're an avid learner, you attend lots of business improvement courses, you've had coaches along the way. You do seek out to surround yourself in great people. What's some of the best advice you've ever been given?
There's lots, really. Like the database thing, that's one for me. And it doesn't matter if you're if you're a farmer and you don't think you need a database, you do. Communication and systems. When we did a bit of work with Farm Owners Academy, our weaknesses were planning and budgeting. So that was our big weaknesses. And since we've been working with Andrew, that's all changed. We've got perspective in that side of it. So we do a lot of planning now with our management team in the business, and it gives us an insight into the future. And obviously, never having a budget to having a budget makes a complete difference to what we do. I mean, right from the start, we've been, and someone told me this, make sure you manage your cash flow right. And we've been really good cash flow managers because virtually bootstrapped this business all the way through. So, and by that I mean we've taken no external funding. So we've just built our revenue and made profits and employed people and expanded like that. So yeah, managing our cash flow. So we do things like everyone's got to pay tax and super, and we pay commissions to our sales guys. We've got a couple other things, dividends to a couple of our shareholders and things like that. So we put all that money aside each week, and all of a sudden you've got no surprises in your business. So even though we've got 5 or 6 or 7 bank accounts, we allocate what we think, and it's a certain amount each week into each bank account, so that when it comes to time to pay the GST every month or the commissions every quarter, it's there ready to go. There's no surprises. So things like that, just those sort of things that you learn along the way, or you read about or you get told about, are invaluable to running a business like ours. Whereas ours is completely different to a farm business because we've got no assets. Our database is and our platform is an asset. But if I went to the ANZ Bank and wanted to get an overdraft or something, they'd ask where are all your assets? So they wouldn't give me one. So yeah, it's a completely different business. Communication is a real big one as well. Like just communicating with your staff and obviously your customers and members.
What are you most proud of, Dwain?
Oh, just being here 11 years later, I suppose. That's you read a lot about how people struggle in the first couple of years and go out of business. I've been in an agricultural business, like a service providing business for farmers, 11 years later, and hopefully we can be here for another 11 and beyond, because it's a great industry to be in, and we're in a great luck. Myself and my staff are in a lucky position to service farmers, and all our guys absolutely love the relationships and the conversations they have with the farming community.
2 more questions. How's the future look for farm tender and delay pay? What aspirations do you have for the future?
Yeah, as I said before, and the planning's not the best side. I don't really. I just like to see it keep growing into a business that perhaps every Australian farmer has a connection to. Like everything, we're not for everyone, and there's people out there that don't use it, but lots of people out there that haven't heard of us. So I find that I find that like a really good, because we can still reach those people. So I'm excited by that. But yeah, I love the growing side of things and how the challenges behind making a business grow, and obviously, as I said before, about the relationships and the communication. That's a big part of it. So no lofty, heavy plans. Been in it for a lot of years now, and I think I'll continue to be in it for a lot of years down the track.
But sometimes the best plans are just constant improvements and continuing to tweak and make those 1% improvements, and on the back of that, just that incremental growth that you talk about.
I think that, and enjoying it. You've got to enjoy it. I think soon as like the retired footballer or cricketer that's probably not going as well as they should. It sort of tells you when it's time, but I haven't found that time yet. As we move through, my role becomes less in the work side of the business as far as an operational side. It gives me a chance to go out and try new things, come up with new ideas, and improve on some of the things that we already do reasonably well.
Last question, Dwain. What would you say to a younger you, a 20-year-old you, if you were giving him that nugget of advice to send them on their way? What would that piece of advice be?
Look, I probably wouldn't change much, because as I said before, being a 15-year, running a family farm was so invaluable to where I am today. So, look, to tell me, for any youngster, as I said before, if you're in agriculture, don't despair. What you might be doing what you eventually want to do, but what you're doing now is going to lead you to where you want to go, and it's going to play an important role. So, yeah, that if I did, I wouldn't really change much, but when the time was to pull the trigger and have a crack, you got to do it then, and that's what we did. And you got to put yourself in a position where you sort of half sacrifice everything, so there's no turning back. You've got to do that, otherwise, you can't keep having your foot in two camps and playing one off and the other. You've really got to go full in.
I think that's almost the theme for this podcast he's such a great example of someone who has just, with Paula, just backed yourself, made bold decisions, stepped into the unknown with courage and conviction. And, the rest, as they say, is history, Dwain. It's an awesome story to share. And, it is quite amazing to think about, where you've come from and what you've achieved since 2012. Really appreciate your time. I've really enjoyed just sort of unpacking a bit of Farm Tender's backstory. I hope we've done it justice, Dwain, and thank you so much for your time.
Thanks, Hutch. Can I just make one little plug?
Of course.
We've got our Farm Tender 2023, the Business of Farming conference on Friday, March the 3rd in Bendigo. We've got a fantastic lineup of speakers, including your good self. So I'd really like just go to the website and it'll be on one of the links there. If you can attend on that day, it'd be fantastic. It'll be a farmers event, so we go to I go to lots of events where they're sort of half pitched at farmers, but there's no farmers there, and then the speakers aren't really talking about farming as such. So they're agricultural events, but they're not really farming events. So this one's totally for farmers, and all our speakers are going to be talking about things that affect farmers' day-to-day lives, and we hope there's lots of takeaways that people will take home and use in their business to improve it.
So you've beaten me to it, Dwain. I was going to do a wrap up to this podcast.
I just couldn't help.
Your event a plug. I'm glad you haven't missed that opportunity. But I'm really looking forward to being part of that. And to your point, I think the lineup that you've got and the intent with how you've gone about creating that lineup with a view to try and add as much value as you can to those that attend as farmers. It's going to be a cracking event in Bendigo, and we'll share the link to your website and details of that conference in the podcast intro that goes out with this.
That'd be fantastic, Hutch. And thanks again for the opportunity to be here. I've thoroughly enjoyed it.
That's great, Dwain. It's as I say, it's been great to share your story, and we look forward to seeing how our friendship and our partnership between Farm Tender and FOA can grow and evolve over time as well.
Yeah, and just to finalise it, you guys are doing a great job, and I see some of the farmers that come out the other end, and it makes a huge difference to their lives and their businesses. Just by having the expertise that you guys hand on.
Appreciate you saying that, Dwain. Thanks, mate, for being open and reflecting and sharing your story. And let's hope the next 15 years are as significant and as successful as your last 15. Congratulations on all of your success.
Thanks very much.
Thanks for listening to another episode of the Profitable Farmer podcast by Farm Owners Academy. If you're new to this show, be sure to follow us. If you've been a long-time listener, let your friends know about us, or come continue the conversation in the Profitable Farmer Facebook group. All the best as you grow your business and create your freedom farm. Until next time, keep being incredible.